we took it up on the second floor there and went to the window, and we got to point it down on the tank. We poured it down on there, and I don't know, 15, 20 cans. And then we took some white phosphorus grenades and threw down on that, and they went off and lit the thing up and burned it up. And we took the town. Yeah, you could take a bottle of gasoline, cork it with some goods or something, light it, pitch it on a tank, burn it. The Germans had the best tanks in the world. Our tanks was no comparison to theirs. They had the Tiger Royal that our tank could shoot and hit them in front, and it just, the bullets would just bounce off the shell. For one thing. Another thing, their guns on their tank fired farther than ours. So what the Germans would do in a tank battle, they'd just keep back out of reach of the fire of the American tanks and knock our tanks out, you see. The only way we had a chance was getting in close and hit them in the side. And lots of the tank battles, they won that way. But yeah, I've had them shoot at me not once or twice. I've had them shoot at me many times. When we got in those hedgerows, I aim to explain to you too about the hedgerows. In Normandy there, they had hedgerows. They used them for fence, like we would use fence, usually about an acre lot, and it would be surrounded with hedgerows. They were dirt mounds about 5 to 6 foot high and 4 to 5 foot thick. And on top of those, they had planted hedge, trees growing on top of them. And the roots that grew down through those hedgerows like steel into concrete and forced them. Our tanks couldn't get through there. They'd rear up like that, and the Germans would knock them out. And they thought, well, we'll try to give the infantry, give us some TNT explosive, and we'll go down there and try to blow a hole through there, and that didn't work either. But that was another surprise to us. They told us we had the best weapons in the world. And we got over there, and their German artillery was far better than theirs. They shoot farther than us, and they could drop them in your hip pocket. Their machine guns, ours would go right, tap, 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 tap. Theirs would go boom. They could shoot 10 times many more bullets out of theirs than we could out of ours. They were faster. Another thing they had was the motors that they fired. You drop a shell down in the tube, you've seen them like that. Ours was stationary, and to move it this way, you had to move the whole machine. The Germans was on a round thing, and it turned around and around. They just turned it around and around, you see. Another thing in the hedgerow fight in there, we just need to spray bullets. They get behind them, and we had to walk across the field or run right into them shooting at us. They had what we call burp guns, would shoot 30 rounds. They could shoot 30 rounds automatically. We had a Garand M1 rifle that shot 5 times, and then we had to load it. So they had a great advantage on us. That they just take it and spray it, and we had to aim there and fire it one at a time, see. So you find out those things when you get in sometime. But we won anyway.
That's right.
With all they had, we won. Okay.
Questions? Over here. Go ahead, Tracy.
Do you ever remember seeing people dying and having guts splattered everywhere?
Wow. Okay.
He answered that question already.
He answered that, but she said, do you remember seeing people with their insides blown out?
Yeah, I bet you that a while ago. I seen them hold them in their hand, trying to hold them in with their hands.
That's what I thought.
That's why the bouncing Bettys sometimes. You see, the Germans had the Omaha Beach there. They didn't have to aim a gun at you. They had done practice so much. They'd have a machine gun here and a machine gun here. That would cover so much territory there. And this one would fire, and then this one would fire. It's what you call time firing. One would never quit. You see what I'm talking about? You was under fire all the time. When this was reloading, this one was shooting. This one was reloading, this one was shooting. Then they had mortar shells and artillery shells that covered so many blocks there. You walked into their fire. That's what you done. If you're lucky to get through, or you crawled under it. If you crawled under it, most times they would set one low and one high. And I seen our own tanks run over our own troops. In those hedgerows, like I told you, they would have the hedgerows around them like fence around them. And they were good protection for us. We'd dig in, but Germans would be behind them too. And if you attacked it, you had to get out and run across there, and they were shooting at you. But around them, they had what they call sunken roads. Now at Omaha, where I was at there, is where the Vikings come down a long time ago and conquered. You know about the Vikings, don't you? And those people were still Vikings. They were good people, but they still had their ways and things like that. But where they had traveled around these hedgerows, they had roads to get their horses around. Their wagons and horses, like our wagon and horses, we got 2 horses in the wagon, right? They had 1 horse and 1 wagon. And the reason for that, there wasn't enough room in those roads lengthwise, wide enough. They had traveled that so much, they had cut down. It wasn't like blacktop or nothing like that. It was dirt. It had cut down so deep that when they traveled on them, they were down below the surface of the ground.
Wow.
And so we thought, instead of going and running across the field of hedge road, we'll get down in there and run it. Well, the Germans had the machine guns set right down through there. When you got down there, you were dead. But sometimes our tanks fighting through there, they would be buttoned up now. That meant sometimes a man, the turret would be outside when it wasn't under too much fire, directing things, but when it was under fire, they was buttoned up. They'd go down through there, and some of our guys would get wounded and are dead, land in those sunken roads, and our tanks would run right over. I tell you what got me one time, after I'd been fighting. They were fighting for a long time. They sent me back to get water. And when I got back there, behind the lines a little, they were picking up our dead. And 2.5-ton truck. They were picking up a body and throw it on a truck, pick up another, till they got it up to the top. There was one real good-looking, blonde-headed boy, about 18, and his arm was flopping like that, and the other one was off, and that kind of shook me a little bit to see my own guys picked on a truck on top of each other and the bodies floating around like that, you know. But that's war. That's war. War is a living hell. I want you to know that. War is a living hell. And you remember that. And do everything you can in this country, if you can. Speak to your politicians and things and tell them that we're supposed to be a peaceful nation. And I hope that we can live in peace. I think about that. I pray about that sometimes. I pray for my country. I pray for other countries. I hate to see children in war that's in right now in the countries over there that get their parents killed, or they can't take their little dog and cat out and play with it and have a good time like we did when we was kids and free and swimming in the Kentucky River and things like that. So you're a fortunate people. The American people is fortunate people. They don't know nothing about war. They never hear the bombs go off. You know what it is to lay in a battlefield at night sometimes and hear the screaming of the wounded? We had a boy that got in a minefield, a German minefield. They had a minefield. He got in there and he was wounded and laying there and he couldn't get out. And we tried to get him out. We lost 5 people trying to get that guy out. And finally the sergeant said, "You ain't sent him no more." And he was crying and hollering. And it went on and on. You had to lay there in your foxhole and listen to that. It got weaker and weaker. And finally, this is funny, but it's not funny, but you finally got to the point that you nearly said, "Why don't he just die?" Why don't they just die? You hear things like that. And another thing, most young men, when they got like that, when they were fixing to die, you know what most of them call for? Mom. Mom. Mothers and sons are close. And that's not pretty, is it? But I've heard that, yeah. Anything else, I'll be glad to answer.
Eric, does he ask him if he has, fellow soldiers that he remains in contact with? I know, this generation is dying off, so does he have some fellow soldiers that he still has contact with?
Do you still have friends that you fought with, that you stay in touch with, in contact with?
No, not right now, I don't. All of the ones that was in my division was killed. My division had 15,000 men. We had 10,000 killed, 20,000 wounded. And if you break that down, you say, well, out of 15,000 men, 10,000 ain't too bad. But you break it down, that 10,000 come out of your rifle company. The guys that were riflemen that fought on the ground. You take in an infantry division, you've got truck drivers, you've got people that take care of the supplies. You got most of your people that are really behind the line. Some of the, if I'd have had a job that some of the guys had in there in World War II, would have been a pinch. If I could have been back behind the line, I went back a couple of times, and they was having a ball back there, you know. They was living in buildings, and they were going with the French girls. Now here's what happened. When you see a movie sometime, and you might seen some, where we took a town, they throwing roses on us, the girls are, and hugging us and so forth. But the thing of it is, we have to go on through the town. We've got to keep up with the Germans that's retreating and fighting them, and then here comes our dudes in behind, and they're back there, the French girls are waiting on them. They're eating and stuff. And man, I like to go back, you know. That's what you have to watch. So I'm telling you, if you get into something, you better get into quartermaster or something like that, or you'll be back with a mademoiselle.
I was thinking if we could, he has some medals. If anybody would like, what I'd like to do is see if Mr. Beazley would lead us in the pledge today. And then after that, if anyone has an interest in seeing the medals or asking a question up close, we could do that. But we probably need to... Oh, and then we have something for you. Would you? Okay. We've got a gift here for Mr. Beazley.
Hope it ain't a grenade.
No, sir. To say thank you for taking your time.
I can't hear you now.
I said thank you for taking your time and serving our country. This is a bowl that I think, did we make this? It's a gourd. It's a gourd, okay. But it has some jams and jellies you can take home and have with biscuits with your coffee in the morning. Yeah. And so I'll put this right here for you. We'll take that home.
That's another funny thing that just brought to my mind, so I can say something else. After the war, in December when the 44, when the Germans started the Battle of the Bulge and broke through the lines, and we had all that fighting. Finally, we won out. We won it. And I was in a little French town there. Now, my mom and I didn't have no girlfriend. I had a bunch of gals I liked. We run around together and things like that. We were good friends, you know, and things like that. But a steady girlfriend I didn't. And but I had a girl that wrote me every day for 4 years. Just a friend. But she had sent me Christmas presents, and my mom and my sister, they had made candy, put it all in the boxes and sent me. Well, I didn't get nothing. And Christmas was a heavy fight, you know. and fighting for their lives. The Germans had cut through our line and got behind us. And I didn't get any Christmas things whatsoever. So in July now after Christmas, they brought me a thing in there, and it was a address labeled to me from my mom. There was some candy that was green, molded. The Germans had got my Christmas. When they broke through the lines of my division, they got all the Christmas presents. They eat my Christmas dinners. That was odd in a way, I thought. But anyway, it didn't make any difference. Another thing is funny too. When I made that invasion of France now, I wrote a first cousin of mine. She was a real good first cousin. I thought the world and all of her. She was older than me, from Nicholasville. And I wrote her a lot. And I wrote her one of the first letters that I got to write after I'd made the invasion. I'd been in France now on the days. I had a beachhead 5 miles long. That's all we had. And I wrote her a letter to the beachhead in France. She wrote me back and said, "Oh, I envy you. I've always wanted to go to Paris. How did it look?" I was dug in a French graveyard. I dug a hole. I had to dig a hole there and get in it, and I got in it, in this graveyard. So I wrote back and told her I come in contact with the French underground today. So I got her back.
All right, you guys stand with us. We're going to say the pledge. We're going to say the pledge. Would you like to lead us in the pledge, sir? Yeah. That'd be great. I'll hold that for you.